Good evening, my washers and dryers, and today we are talking about how I wrote my zero draft in 20 days. Let's go back 10 years ago. I am writing a fan fiction and decide about 5 minutes into the planning phase that I don't actually want it to be a fan fiction because I don't want it to be stuck in this pre-existing world. I wanted to move it to a world of my own creation, and so I wrote a draft 10 years ago. And we wrote a sequel, a third book, a prequel. We went back and rewrote several iterations of the first and second book and a couple times with the third book. And it just kind of sat there. We didn't really do anything with it for probably 5-ish years. And then probably 2 months ago, I was on a kick just rereading my old stuff. And I came across this and man, like 15-year-old me was really onto something. 15-year-old me wrote exactly what I wanted to read here today. And I have 10 years of writing, reading, and editing experience now, and I thought this is a great time to really dig into this work, figure out what it could be, and potentially do something with it. So that's what I set out to do. All while watching videos from creators like Alexa Dunn, who is a published YA author. This book happens to be in a YA category, and so I took a lot of her advice to heart. I sat down and I plotted it. I typically am a plotter more so than a pantser, and that led me to the method that got me to 57,000 words in 20 days. And I wanted to talk about it, share what worked for me. Maybe it works for you. I don't know. I just wanted to talk about it. This is my little map that got me from 0 to 57K in 20 days, and I'm really proud of it. So this map is not a scene for scene telling of the book. And the book that we're writing is it's set in 19th century England. A 17-year-old kid is brought into this alchemy program, and he goes to this castle up in the north of England, and hijinks ensue, the typical kind of gothic, creepy stuff. It would be considered dark academia today. But yeah, so we wanted to plot out that book. My goal was like 65,000 words. But this method ended up being a really effective way for me to map out what the book was and keep me on task. So rather than write out every single scene that needed to happen, I started up here with the scene that would be the inciting incident, and the scene down here, which would be the last scene before the climax, denouement, all of that folly action stuff. From there, I did every scene I wanted to write, that I remembered from my previous readings of the book that I really enjoyed, that I would be excited to write again. And from there, I would fill in what scenes needed to happen in order for those scenes to make sense. The beauty of doing it with post-it notes is it let me move stuff around if I needed to. If I needed to fit in more scenes, I could. And then when everything was hammered down, this I do recommend, tape it all down. Because by the time you have like stuck and unstuck the sticky notes, they're not so sticky anymore, and so having tape really helps keep everything in place. But this ended up being really beneficial for a few reasons. So for starters, I never got stuck. If I got stuck, I knew what came after, and I could always fill in brackets what was written on the post-it note, and I did several times. And this way I was always writing. I wasn't trying to figure out what would happen because it was the zero draft. And that was another thing that helped me out, was saying, you know what, this isn't a first draft, this is a zero draft. We are just retelling the story to ourselves, and that worked out great. Another thing this was helpful for is it helped keep me excited. I had scenes I was looking forward to writing, and I knew I had to push through scenes maybe I wasn't as excited about to get to those scenes. And so it was a really good way to keep me motivated. And lastly, it ended up being a good estimator to figure out where I would be roughly, because with each scene I could write down, this scene took X number of words, this scene took X number of words, and I could essentially guesstimate what the word count would be. And there are a couple of scenes that are just brackets in my zero draft, and so I do think with those scenes written, I would have hit my 65,000 goal. But that's pretty cool. And this ended up being a really effective method for me in terms of writing it. And so we've written the zero draft. We're back on our feet and we're moving forward. I do want to talk about the writing experience. So saying I wrote 57,000 words in 20 days is a really catchy video title. I wasn't setting out to do a challenge or anything. This wasn't part of Camp NaNoWriMo or anything like that. Part of it, was I was about to start a new project at work, and I was about to start a new editing project for my side gig, and I really wanted to finish it before either of those things started. And so it was a race against the clock more so than a race against anything else. And it was also an opportunity to just get myself in the habit of writing every day. And I gave myself the unrealistic goal that I wanted to write at least 1,000 words every day. And I did. I did write at least 1,000 words a day, which is too much. I'm not saying that to shame anyone who doesn't do that and who doesn't want to. I wanted to, so I did. The most I wrote in a day was 7,957 words, and the fewest I wrote in a day was like 1,409. And the upside to that is I made a lot of progress really quickly. The downside of that is on the days where I did not want to write, where I was staring down a very respectable 800 word count, I was like, this sucks. I have to write 200 more words. There has to be 200 more words inside of me. And I would have to tell myself that on days where there wasn't 200 extra words in me. So the discipline aspect of it, that was great. I did appreciate that. And yeah, another thing that helped me out was I just kind of wrote down day by day in my planner what my word count was. And that was just a good way to visually represent how things were going. I would write down my total word count, and then on the weekly, I would write down how many words that was per day. And it was a good way to keep track of benchmarks, of milestones like 10,000, 30,000, whatever. And it was just another way to stay motivated and keep going. And I didn't have to, but just for fun, I would take a picture of my word count every day and put it on my Instagram story. I had a friend who would reply to it every day with encouragement, which was super helpful, so thank you for that. And yeah, this was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to know that I could do it, and I think I want to use this as another way of like accountability as a video diary to myself, to look back on this 2 years from now and see how far this project has come, if it's gone anywhere. So with that in mind, what happens now? Where do we go from here? So the first thing I did was, as soon as I finished, had it printed. FedEx, pro tip, if you do FedEx printing manuals, you can get these printed and spiral bound, and they'll put like a frost cover and a vinyl cover on the back. Super helpful. It's a good way to get it formatted, and I think that only cost me like 50 or 60 bucks. And I printed like 12-point double space because I wanted to be able to read it, highlight the things that work, make comments in the margins. I am not going to look at it until May at the earliest. I finished drafting April 9th, and there's a variety of practices of how long to wait until you look at a draft again. But May is the earliest I would look at it, and it'll probably be June before I start looking at it again. And so in the meantime, what am I doing? I'm working on some other stuff. I'm outlining another project that's been very troublesome. It has stuck with me for a long time, and I have not known how to do it. And then my husband expertly threw out a suggestion, and it solved everything. So I've been outlining that, just kind of playing around with it. Doing some stuff for my side gig. My day job has kicked up tremendously, so I'll probably be doing that. But I'm also reading. I'm reading stuff that is in the category that's kind of in the genre. So stuff like A Deadly Education, Anatomy of Love Story. I'll probably revisit All of Us Villains. And the thing with those is they're great. Anatomy of Love Story I'll kind of like pluck out and set to the side. The problem with stuff like A Deadly Education and All of Us Villains is this is what I'm trying to do differently. These have innate magic. The characters are born with magical powers and they use them. I want alchemy to be something that you can pick up and learn and do. And it's not dependent on like your bloodline or anything like that. The downside of this means there's a lot of world building involved. And alchemy is in a weird area where it's like, is it science fiction? Is it fantasy? Meh, I don't know. But Full Metal Alchemist looms so large over my shoulder. So whenever I'm trying to like plan things, I just have it breathing down my neck like, we kind of did that first. And I'm like, but is that exclusive to you? Like, is carving a transmutation circle into the back of someone's hand, is that like exclusively yours? I don't know. But world building is another thing I'm going to be working on in my downtime. And world building is like my least favorite part. I'm terrible at world building. I give you a castle, it is a castle. You know what a castle looks like. It's alchemy. You kind of know what alchemy's like. It's like chemistry for theater kids. So we have to figure out how the world building's gonna work. And we're learning about revision in general. I have some videos and some books that I'm going to read about revision specifically because that's a thing that I haven't really done. I've done a lot of rewrites, but I haven't done a fundamental overhaul of this, really. There are some things that I definitely want to include second time around, such as subplots. I think subplots would really help the book. I think figuring out some of the character dynamics and relationships will be helpful. Because we have my main character, and we have like his love interest, his rival, and his other friend, and how can we flesh those out to be more significant? How can we use those to bolster the plot of the book? I think that's what this time is for, is to think about the goals of revision, what we want to fix. But I'm going to learn about revision. I still don't know about it yet. But yeah, and then after revision, and we do like an actual first draft and probably a second draft, I may let other people look at it. Or maybe I won't. And I'll figure out what I want to do from there. I do think publication is what I want to do. Whether that be self-publishing or traditional publishing, I haven't decided on that yet. Right now, we're just kind of basking in the finished part, in that it is done. And that feels really good. We're just gonna kind of figure it out from there. It's so funny to read a lot and then come back and try to write, because I can read books, understand the formula, see it play out in front of my eyes, sit down to a blank screen, and have no idea what to do from here. So we're gonna figure it out. And this is going to be, like I said, my diary to my future self, so I can look back and see what we accomplished when and how. And maybe it's motivating for you. I know that it was super motivating for me to watch content from people who were writing books, and maybe this is just a chance to tell someone about what you're working on. But yeah, do I recommend writing almost 60,000 words in 20 days? No. I do recommend writing daily if you are trying to reach a goal. I recommend plotting, at least for me. If you're a pantser discovery writer, that's amazing. That is some witchcraft. I don't know how that works at all. And I commend you for it. But if you are trying to draft quickly, I do think a plan helps. I say as someone with absolutely no professional publishing experience. No, that's really all I wanted this to be. It was just kind of like a little vlog about writing after I've done all the writing, because let's be honest, you don't want to see me tip-tapping away on my business boy keyboard. This is better for both of our sakes. So let me know if you're working on stuff. Let me know if you have a method that has worked for you for writing, editing. What are your revision tips? Let me know. I would love to hear it, genuinely. And yeah, I think that'll do it for me. I hope you're having a lovely, lovely evening, and I will see you all next time.